Shane, one of the remarkable and inspiring stories that we've heard from you and about you is this faith community on Potter Street in Philadelphia that you've been part of for 20 years, where there is both a very attentive intentionality around spiritual practices and prayer and worship. And there is this going forth every day to walk with the poor, alongside the poor, to companion the poor. And I guess what I want to ask is, youth workers so want their young people to experience the love of God, to experience grace, but we've all got the lesson that it can't be earned, it can't be worked for, which leads us to what can you do? And I wonder if what you've experienced in this intentional community that companions the poor, that there is some relationship or synergy between spiritual depth and service of others that just makes grace more likely to come as the gift.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I've come to really think that one of the greatest mysteries of our faith is that for some strange reason, God does not want to change the world without us. And when I've seen really horrific things like I experienced in Iraq during the war and the bombing, in Afghanistan, other places, like even in my neighborhood, the injustices in the school systems, all these things. It's easy to throw my hands up at God and say, God, why don't you do something? And when I've done that, sometimes I've heard God say back, I did do something. I made you. And I think sometimes we may go to God and we may say to God, like, why did you allow 30,000 people to die from guns every year in the United States, 90 a day? And I think we may hear God say, you tell me why that was allowed. Like, you're my hands, you're my feet. And sometimes we've used prayer as a place to hide from responsibility. And I believe prayer, it's a deep part of my life. It's a deep part of our community, but it is not the place to hide. It's a place that we are fueled to get up off our knees and to respond. So, this idea that we're to become the answer to our prayers. And there's no better story to that than the miracle of the fishes and loaves story in the Gospels. And, the disciples know Jesus has been speaking, and there's all these crowds of thousands of people, and they're hungry. And the disciples notice, which I think is beautiful. They come to Jesus and they say, there's all these hungry people. You need to do something. And Jesus' response is brilliant. He looks back at them and he says, feed them. Right? And they instinctively are like, well, where are we going to come up with that much money? Where's the nearest supermarket? Does a pizza man deliver here? They're like thinking, how in the world will he do that? And Jesus kind of sees this young person, right? They see this young person, and he's got a few fish and loaves willing to share, and the disciples take that to Jesus, and Jesus adds a little God stuff or something, but everybody eats, and there's baskets left over. But what I love about the story is that young person got to be a part of the miracle, and that the disciples got to be a part of the miracle, that Jesus refused to solve the hunger without involving all of them. And I think that what a beautiful thing, that the temptation of Jesus was actually to turn stones into bread on his own, out of his own power, whatever. And so I look at the problems in our world, and this is why things like gun violence are so troubling when people say we offer our thoughts and prayers, and certainly we want to pray for the victims of gun violence, but they need more than thoughts and prayers. We need to change some laws. We need to do justice, And so I think with so many of the things in the world, this question of what does it look like to seek first the kingdom of God, God's dream on earth. And I'm pretty sure God's dream is not for 90 people to die a day. It's not for black and brown folks to fear for their lives from the police that are meant to protect them. It's not for 1 in 3 African-American boys to go to prison. Like, that's not God's dream. So if we're really praying, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, we get up off our knees and we say, how do I now seek that and participate in the bringing of God's dream on earth?